Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Brandon Jones, and I will be talking about early detection of American foul brood using machine learning. Bees play an important role in New Zealand, both for the environment and in industry. As well as pollinating many wild plants, bees are used in tree and crop farming, dairy farming, animal meat production, and honey production. The apiculture industry is growing fast in New Zealand. The number of registered beekeeping enterprises in New Zealand doubled between 2012 and 2018, and this growth in beekeepers and beehives has corresponded to significant economic benefits as well. Pure honey exports from the 2017-18 season was worth $348 million, and all of these statistics shown here are the highest that they have ever been. Bee health is clearly one of the primary concerns in New Zealand's apiculture industry, and one of the biggest threats to bee health in New Zealand is American foul brood, also known as AFB. AFB is a disease caused by the bacteria Panibacillus larvae, and it naturally infects approximately one hive out of every 1,000 each year in New Zealand. The disease has two forms, the dormant form as spores and the vegetative active form. As few as 10 vegetative bacteria can be enough to infect a bee larva if it is under 24 hours old. The bacteria, when in the vegetative state, feeds on the larval tissue of the bee and ultimately results in the death of the bee before it grows into an adult. This can be identified in the hive by the dried tongues and the roping out shown in these pictures here. As the disease spreads through the hive, the population begins to drop as the number of successful hatchings decreases. Eventually, the hive cannot continue to sustain itself and it will die. It is at this stage the disease is at its most dangerous because the honey stores of the dead AFB-infected hive are typically robbed by worker bees from other hives within a radius of up to 3 kilometres. In robbing the honey, these worker bees take AFB spores back to their own hives that may then be fed to larvae in their hive, spreading the disease. Under New Zealand law, hives with AFB are to be destroyed within 7 days of identification. The only way to successfully destroy a hive with AFB is to burn it. As well as the AFB hive destruction, any hives on the same apiary as an infected hive must undergo a 12-month quarantine period. Beehives typically cost between $300 and $1,000, depending on size and time of year. So this loss of hives due to AFB and loss of honey due to quarantine is quite significant to beekeepers. AFB is particularly tough to control because of how difficult it is to identify, especially in the early stages of the disease. This is a critical time to find the disease to minimise the risk of infection spreading to other hives. All beehives have to be checked annually by someone with a Disease Elimination Conformity Agreement qualification. However, a hive can go from having frames that look like these to being dead within a couple of months, so more regular checks would be better. Comparing these two frames here, one of which is healthy and the other is in the early stages of AFB, shows how difficult early detection can be with the human eye. So my idea is to develop an app that uses machine learning to be able to identify a frame that is going to look like that up in the top right, where the 6 cells have sunken caps, when it still looks like this. Using this app, a beekeeper would be able to quickly and easily photograph each side of each brood frame in a hive, and the app would give them feedback like, the hive looks healthy at the moment, the hive looks questionable, check it again in a few days, or the hive appears to be infected, take action. The idea of early detection with the help of photographs and machine learning works in a similar way to the Skin Vision and My Skin apps that have been downloaded over 100,000 times each, which can be used to photograph and map moles on the body. The apps give prompts to take photos of particular moles regularly to track changes, and they suggest seeking professional opinion on suspect spots. Machine learning is a process by which training data is used to teach a program to perform a specific task, relying on patterns and inference rather than explicit instructions every time. The training data for the app would be collected by getting a number of beekeepers from around the country to photograph both sides of every brood frame each time they check their hives for some period of time keeping track of which hive and which frame each photo is of. If any of the hives do end up with AFB, that will be noted, and then the program can start to find warning signs of AFB infection at an earlier stage than humans could, due to similarities in frames from hives that end up with the disease. Consider these frames here. The two on the left clearly don't look very healthy, but the two on the right, to the human eye, look fairly healthy, but it's hard to tell whether they might be in the early stages of the disease. As it continues to be used, the program will gather more data and will adapt, getting better at spotting AFB even earlier. Clearly, minimising the spread of AFB is beneficial to the well-being of New Zealand and New Zealanders in a number of ways. Financially, beekeepers will have fewer hives burnt and more honey produced that can be sold. Environmentally, there will be more healthy bees, which would help bee-pollinated plants and ecosystems thrive. Socially, there would be more honey available for New Zealanders to eat, and beekeepers would be living happier lives. So, by using an app with a machine learning program, beekeepers would find warning signs of American foulbrood earlier, reducing the spread of the disease and increasing the economic, environmental and social well-being of New Zealand. Thank you.